Next, on page 145, in the small towns of the Frankenwald Mountains in northern Bavaria, on the 2nd of May, a Walber tree is erected before a tavern, and a man dances around it, enveloped in straw from head to foot, in such a way that the ears of corn unite above his head to form a crown. He is called the Walber, and used to be led in procession through the streets, which were adorned with sprigs of birch. So here is another tree ritual, where they are covering a guy from head to foot in straw, and then marching him off down the street with a procession of people. And he too may be led out to a tree somewhere and tied to it and then set on fire. On page 146 they write, among the gypsies of Transylvania and Romania, the festival of Green George is the chief celebration of spring and takes place on the 23rd of April. It says, on the eve of the festival, a young willow tree is cut down, adorned with garlands and leaves, and set up in the ground. Sick and old people go out to that tree in the evening, and they spit on it and say, "You will soon die, but let us live." Next morning the gypsies gather about the willow. The chief figure of the festival is Green George, a lad who is concealed from top to toe in green leaves and blossoms. He then takes 3 iron nails and he hammers them into the willow, and then he pulls them out and throws them into a running stream for the water spirits. Finally, a pretense is made of throwing Green George into the water, but in fact, it is only a puppet made of branches and leaves, which is thrown into the stream. In this version of the custom, the powers of granting easy delivery to women and of communicating vital energy to the sick and old are clearly ascribed to the willow, while Green George, the human double of the tree, bestows food on the cattle and further ensures the favor of the water spirits by putting them in direct communication with the tree. So once again, they're not going to write that they're taking part in human sacrifice. So they have a fairy tale translation of their ritual, but nonetheless, they have a lad, a boy, concealed from top to bottom in green leaves and blossoms. They describe hammering nails into a tree. They discuss people going out and all taking turns spitting on the tree. And then they describe throwing Green George into the water. But they remind you that it is only a puppet made of branches and leaves, and that's going to heal the sick and old. So once again, this may be a ritual where a young boy has to die so that the old and sick could receive some energy. And once again, that describes most elderly priests. They are definitely old and very sick. On page 148, they write, in some parts of Russia, on St. George's Day, that's the 23rd of April, a youth is dressed out like Jack in the Green, with leaves and flowers. The Slavans call him the Green George, holding a lighted torch in one hand and a pie in the other. He goes out to the cornfields, followed by girls, singing appropriate songs. A circle of brushwood is next lighted, in the middle of which is set the pie. All who take part in this ceremony then sit down around the fire and divide the pie among themselves. In this custom, the Green George dressed in leaves and flowers is plainly identical with the Green George who is associated with a tree in Transylvanian and Romanian customs observed on the same day. So in this one, not only is he covering himself with flowers and leaves, he is also carrying a torch. The only thing he's missing is a sign around himself saying, "Light me on fire." But according to this fairy tale, he is holding a pie. And they say that pie is put on a bundle of sticks and then burned in a cornfield. It's not this Green George guy, but it's the pie he's holding. So traditionally what they're doing is that they're equating their victim, something they're going to set on fire. This isn't a boy. This is a bundle of sticks, or a pile of leaves, or some dried flowers, or a wicker man, or a hay man. And to spell it out for you, let's cover him with leaves, let's cover him with hay, and hand him a torch. And he could walk down the middle of the street, and then he could walk out into a cornfield holding a torch and a pie. And then they'll have a bonfire that they'll cook a pie on, and then all the people would eat the pie. So again, based on their literal fairy tale version of these religious rituals, these people sound psychotic. On page 148, I quote, "Again we saw that in Russia, at Whitsuntide, a birch tree is dressed in woman's clothes and set up in the house. Clearly equivalent to this is the custom observed on Whit Monday by Russian girls in the district of Pinsk. They choose the prettiest of their number, envelop her in a mass of foliage taken from the birch trees, and carry her about through the village." Again on page 148, in Rula, "As soon as the trees begin to grow green in the spring, the children assemble on a Sunday and go out into the woods, where they choose one of their playmates to be the little leaf man. They break branches from the trees and twine them about the child, till only his shoes peep out from the leafy mantle. Holes are made in it for him to see through, and two of the children lead the little leaf man, so that he may not stumble or fall. Singing and dancing, they take him from house to house, asking for gifts of food. Lastly, they sprinkle the leaf man with water and feast on the food they have collected." In Frichtel, Switzerland, at Whitsuntide, boys go out into a wood and swathe one of their number in leafy boughs. He is called the Whitsuntide lout, and being mounted on horseback with a green branch in his hand, he is then led back into the village. At the village well, a halt is called, and the leaf-clad lout is dismounted and ducked in the trough. So it sounds like they're putting him in a well. The urchins march before him in bands, begging him to give them a Whitsuntide wedding. So it sounds like they're taking a young kid, they're covering him with branches so that he could barely walk or see, and then two children are leading him around so that he could be harassed. And I guess they duck him into a well or into a trough. So this does not sound too fun for whoever is being called the Whitsuntide lout. Also on page 148, they write, "In England, the best known example of these leaf-clad mummers is Jack in the Green, a chimney sweeper who walks encased in the pyramidal framework of wickerwork, which is covered with holly and ivy, and surmounted by a crown of flowers and ribbons. Thus arrayed, he dances on May Day at the head of a troop of chimney sweepers who collect pence. In Frichtel, a similar frame of basket work is called the Whitsuntide basket. As soon as the trees begin to bud, a spot is chosen in the wood, and here the village lads make the frame with all secrecy, lest others should forestall them. Leafy branches are twined round two hoops, one of which rests on the shoulders of the wearer, the other encircles his calves. Holes are made for his eyes and mouth, and a large nosegay crowns the whole. In this guise, he appears suddenly in the village at the hour of vespers, preceded by 3 boys blowing on horns made of willow bark. The great object of his supporters is to set up the Whitsuntide basket on the village well and to keep it and him there, despite the efforts of the lads from neighboring villages who seek to carry off the Whitsuntide basket and set it up on their own well. So once again, these are not supporters. This is a mocking ritual. This is what they've done time and time again all over the world to different people who are not one of them, who are not psychotic lunatics raised up in a child molestation house. So it's not too much fun to have a bunch of sticks tied to you or wicker tied to you so that you could barely move and then have to stand up on the edge of a well. And then there is a sport played by these cult members concerning trying to kidnap the boy and then bring them off into another area to mock him and make him stand on another well. So I want to make this completely clear. These people take much pleasure in this sort of thing. This book plainly illustrates that these psychotics, establishment and military people, are involving young children that they rape and control to take part in these obscene rituals where they all consider it a lot of fun and a great game, abusing somebody from a regular house, mocking them, torturing them, raping them, and then finally slowly roasting them over a slow fire. This is a celebration to them. This is a festival for these type of people. They are not forced into doing this. They enjoy doing this. This is the meaning of life to these people. So it shouldn't be a surprise when you start to look at these people and realize who they are. When you start to notice who these people are and something does not seem right with them. They look and act sadistic. They look and act mentally retarded or autistic or very simple. These people are all involved with something that is very evil, and they have adapted very well to it. They don't have a problem with this sort of thing at all. I don't care if they masquerade themselves as some very religious group of people or part of some benevolent secret society that focuses mainly on charity or social events. I don't care if they masquerade as police officers or school teachers or the fire department or government officials or church heads. What you will find is that this is a big dark secret, that they love doing this, that they insist on doing this. And if you try to reason with them or appeal to their sensibilities or morality, you will find that that is all missing. These people have been so programmed and so abused starting when they were little babies. It's almost as if the whole human part of them has been removed. They know how to pretend like they're human. They know how to act and fool people. But when you start to know what to look for, sooner or later, the facade, the disguise that they're just like you begins to fade. They can't pull that off for too long. And in order to create a group of people that are like this, the whole coven, the whole cult is all centered around child molestation and abuse. That is what the whole cult is about. All around the world, these religious cults that practice witchcraft and human sacrifice, at the heart of that is child abuse and sexual abuse. And what that does is it creates these kids who are first insane. They have schizophrenia. They are conditioned through abuse to disassociate. And what that means is that they lose consciousness of what they are doing. They're hypnotized. The cult looks for people, kids, that they could abuse and basically hypnotize They could be triggered to go into a hypnotic state, and then they are victimized by homosexual predators. And the reason that homosexuality is so prevalent in these religious cults is due to the fact that they do not want the kids attracted to members of the opposite sex so that they could go on to have children. Because when you go on to have children, you go on to have compassion. So what they're looking for is below average intelligence individuals that are easy to program and hypnotize and have multi-personality disorder. And due to this homosexual programming, the girls hate boys and the boys hate the girls. So it's very easy for them to take out all their anger on members of the opposite sex. So this is what you will find all around the world. These types of people are the people that will adapt to these human sacrifice religious cults. That is what you're dealing with. They're below average intelligence. They're easily hypnotized. They are crazy. They are schizophrenic. They have multi-personality disorder. And they are homosexual. So they do not believe in traditional families, having children, getting married. The only thing that they live for are these religious cults filled with people like themselves. So these are the people who are carrying out these terrible acts against little kids or regular people.